On this episode of Money Matters with Jim Doyle, what is financial infidelity? Experts Darren Hutt, Claire Sutton, and Marina Adshade share advice for couples talking about money. Plan more, worry less. This is Money Matters with Jim Doyle.
Is money the last taboo? Are you living a financial double life? From undisclosed accounts to hidden charge card balances, are these instances of financial infidelity? As a financial planner, in my experience, many couples have different financial DNA. That's why I've invited our guests to help couples who might be facing difficult money conversations. But first, I sent Paige to help us get some insights on financial infidelity.
What would financial infidelity between partners look like to you?
Well, if one partner in a relationship was spending substantially more of their joint worth without the other person's knowledge of such, so that would be infidelity from a financial stance.
I probably think that they don't share in terms of their financial position or share for the future when it comes to couples. I mean, right now, I think majority of people are spending more than they have today.
But you have to be honest and upfront with each other. Yes, and so know your spending. You know what your spending limit is, so that you don't go over that and you trust each other.
So I always say to her, don't buy anything. When she goes out shopping, remember, don't buy anything. Of course, she never listens. But
In my practice, couples routinely share differences in perspectives, objectives, and goals. Do our money values lead us into conflict? Marina?
You know, it's an interesting question because usually when people get together and get married, they have shared values. They have the shared values about family and work and where they want to live. So ideally, people would have the shared values about money. The question is, do people really talk about these things before they get married to make sure that they have those shared values?
So Darren, I want to ask you, shared values around money, is that common?
It's uncommon to have shared values around everything. There's going to be differences and challenges and conversations around every topic. Pretty normal, absolutely normal, and it's having the conversation early is pretty critical.
We talk about that conversation going well. What are some tips to make it go a little bit better?
You know, openness about everything. People need full information about what is happening. I think if people are trying to keep things from their spouse, maybe because they're ashamed or because they feel like they don't know as much as the other person, I think that's going to be a problem.
Keeping things from your spouse. Darren?
Boy, oh boy. The money conversation is such an important one, isn't it? Like having that ability to have the conversation about that, I think it's rare that people have the conversations they need to have, quite frankly.
Needed conversations. We'll be right back.
They make it personal. They blame each other. Usually it takes a crisis for couples to begin to look at what their spending habits are.
In your financial cookbook, how many pages do you share with your spouse? In this segment, when couples can't seem to find the words when talking about money, how do we help them? Darren?
That's a good question. How do we help people have those conversations? Other experts can obviously help, financial experts like yourself, people that help people have conversations like mediators. But I think we need communities to be willing to have conversations that are rich and really important. And so in our families, in the communities we're part of as well, do we foster conversation or not?
And maybe even in the school system, right? We give kids all these skills, but do we really give them the communication skills that they need to navigate marriage and finances? Yep. In fact, these are probably two areas where we're pretty weak on preparing the next generation.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
So we got to ask, where do we get these role models?
maybe we need to be the role models. You know, honestly, if we haven't seen that, we need to start being that.
You know, for our generation, you know, we come from a generation where Dad worked, Mom was at home, maybe, but you know, Dad made all the decisions, and so we didn't sit at dinner tables where parents had conversations about money. A lot of us didn't. For the next generation, I think it'll be a little bit better because women are contributing equally most of the time to the household income. I think that couples are having more of those conversations. So this should improve over time, right?
Marina, I love it that you're offering hope for the next generation. I met up with Claire Sutton, a registered clinical counselor, to talk about finding common ground. Saving, spending, investments, credit cards, retirement planning. When it comes to talking to your spouse about money, why is it so difficult?
Oh my goodness, Jim. Most people just aren't rational when it comes to talking about money. You know, they come from different backgrounds, different families. Some were savers, some were spenders, and everything in between. And when they come into the relationship, money is one topic that is often not discussed at all.
Claire, I'm going to put you on the spot here. When do you think a couple should have that first money conversation?
Once they know it's a relationship, once they're making plans, then they have to plan and talk about money, what their goals are 5, 10, 15 years down the road, how they're going to spend, what they're going to save for, understanding the difference between needs and wants.
And where do you think couples stumble the most on this?
They don't talk about it. They make it personal. They blame each other. Usually it takes a crisis for couples to begin to look at what their spending habits are.
But couples need to talk about this stuff. Great advice. So when we talk about couples and money, how do you think they generally decide who makes the financial decisions? Darren?
I think a lot of times it's just sort of by default. Decisions are made financially based on who's maybe the expert in that area in the family. If it's buying a new car, whoever knows more about cars will go out and pick a car and buy a car. You know, every family's different. I think it's pretty random though, isn't it?
Well, you know, I think that, economists actually talk about bargaining power in relationships and how people make decisions. In an ideal world, it would be just like Darren says, that people would act according to their comparative advantage. The best person for the job would do the job. But do you really think that people actually act that way?
We got to get into this. What happens if they both want to take control?
Well, see, this is the thing. If you're not talking globally about your finances together, about all of that, so where does the car fit in? Where does the living situation fit in? Where does all of that fit in? Then it's still a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the way that couples make decisions is changing is another thing that's changing a lot over time. And I think we're seeing big transitions where people within marriages want to have more say in their own lives, more than they might have had in the past.
We definitely want people having these conversations. Let's go back to Paige as she explores delegating financial responsibilities.
If I trust my spouse to handle the finances, why should I get involved?
You know, I think that you can have too many cooks in the kitchen, but I think both people should be understanding of it and one person executes.
I think it's important for everybody to get involved. I mean, in terms of sharing and understanding not only what you have today, but what you have for the future. I mean, if one of the spouses has an accident or something happens, and it's best to know, you know, what you have and what you know, for the future.
Well, if something should happen with me, then he needs to know where everything is, and I have that all written out and taken care of, and passwords, etc., that you might need for accounts, which is very important. I have that recorded in a safe place that he would know how to access.
Now, when it comes to money, couples often trust each other. But how might this be a risky approach?
Yeah, you know, I think that it's good for people who, you know, are the authority on things to make decisions, but I really do think you need to take a long-term perspective. And there is a certain level of risk there, as Jan said, speaking to Paige on the street, you know, what if something happens to one person, but you're giving a lot of responsibility over to another person. I think that, you know, we talk a lot about investments, but we haven't talked a lot about debt. But you know, if you're in a marriage with somebody and you're trusting them with that, you ultimately could find yourself with all sorts of debt that you didn't know was there.
So Darren, what happens if I'm okay with my debt levels, but my spouse isn't? How do we reach common ground?
Oh boy, the conversation has to happen. I see it all the time as a separation mediator, where couples, they separate and one person is way behind in financial literacy. They don't understand where the debt is and where the payments are and where the accounts are. They have no idea. Now's a real difficult time to catch up. I encourage everybody to, even if you trust, to at least be aware and have the conversation, right?
What are your thoughts about being involved with the big picture?
Well, I mean, I don't even know that it's an issue of trust. You can trust somebody and still get them to tell you what is going on with something that is so important. But I think it's actually a mistake to frame it in terms of trust, because it makes it seem like, oh, if you ask, it shows that you're not trusting the other person. That's nonsense, right? You can have conversations with people that you trust and ask them to explain things to you.
Just because they trust them doesn't mean they know what they're doing either, right?
Right.
So that's like another issue.
Listen, that's some powerful stuff that we're talking about. We'll be right back.
I think it's important to start having those conversations on the first glass of wine rather than the third glass of wine. And I think it's really early to set the tone of how each of us in this relationship are going to respect money and respect the other's goals.
One of the greatest gifts you can give your child is to start their financial literacy early. Unfortunately, for most relationships, we bring our financial histories with us. Merging different perspectives is challenging. Where should they start? Darren?
One of the important things I think to understand is that there are different perspectives on these things and different values around money. And it doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means they're different. And so starting with that place, that my perspective is not the only one, and have the conversation start from that place.
What are your thoughts, Marina?
Yeah, I think that as I said already, I think that people need to come together on shared values before they get married. I think it's a very difficult thing to resolve afterwards. And I think it's something that people should talk about before they plan their life together, is what are these shared values? Are the values consistent? And if they're very different, can those differences be reconciled?
I mean, I used to be an ordained minister years ago, and so I would do marriage counseling for couples that are getting married and go on. And now I'm at the other end of it as a separation divorce mediator, and I've seen it from both ends. I don't know if people can be sure that their values are going to be exactly aligned. It's how you work through it, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, today people stay together a lot longer before they get married. People often live together before they get married, so they should really get each other. With the birth of children or finishing school or goals around buying a house, or as you get closer to retirement, I think that people's values could evolve.
Absolutely.
So couples need to continue talking because they might be going in different directions. Let's go back to Paige as we talk about financial compatibility.
When it comes to money and finances, when do you think the couple should start having the conversation?
As soon as possible. The sooner the better, I would think. I mean, before they get too far down in a relationship that they realize that they're not compatible or financially compatible, then it makes sense to have the discussion sooner than later.
I think it's important to start having those conversations on the first glass of wine rather than the third glass of wine. No, seriously. I think, when we speak about finances as a couple, we think about short term, we think about long term. And so that's where budgeting comes in. I think it's really early to set the tone and the tempo of how each of us in this relationship are going to respect money and respect the other's goals and dreams, and working backwards from the end event, the end event being ideally to get someplace, wherever that place is we're going, and work backwards from it and strategize how to get there.
Before they get married. I definitely think they need to have that before they get married.
Absolutely agree, yes, before you get married.
Isn't it an unreasonable suggestion that couples should have the money conversation early in the relationship? Darren, what do you think?
I think they have to. I think that's really critical early in the relationship. And if you're with somebody and you're trying to have that conversation and they're not having it with you, I call that one of those great check engine light moments where you have to stop and go, what's happening here? Why can't we talk about this?
So Marina, why can't we talk about this?
I mean, earlier in your relationship, I think it's difficult to talk about. And like I mentioned debt before, and I think this is a really good example. It's one thing saying, let's talk about our goals. It's another thing early in a relationship to say, hey, by the way, I have an enormous amount of debt. If you're marrying somebody, that debt needs to be paid off. And now with so many people going to university and accumulating so much student debt, even people who don't own homes and stuff, are starting earlier in their life with debt.
Marina, I hate to say this, but debt is becoming more and more popular these days. Let's go back to Claire to ask, can you really change your partner's money mindset? So if couples have different views about money, why is trying to change them a risky proposition?
Oh, change is so difficult because their beliefs are so ingrained, and no one likes to be told what to do.
So we talk about financial secrets. How does not talking about money create a problem?
Well, not talking about money is a problem because the secrets have been kept for years, probably, and when one person finds out, because inevitably there's a crisis and it comes to the fore, then all hell breaks loose.
So we talked about trying to change your partner. Would you recommend that?
You have to change each other. You have to look for the common ground. Where do we agree? What do we want to do together to rebuild our financial security?
Do you think single people and married couples think about money the same way?
No, they must think about money differently. I mean, first of all, life is a little bit more expensive for single people. It's harder for them to save over their lifetimes. And so it's just much more difficult. And it's actually difficult for single people to retire. They often retire with a lot less wealth than do married people.
If it's a lot more challenges. Darren, what do you see?
When you're deciding for yourself, that's one thing. When you're deciding when two people are involved, that's very, very different. And I think people affect each other too. When people come together, they sort of change each other's perspective, but it's different when you're together.
So we've got two single people bringing two single people perspectives into a couple. What does that transition look like?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because married couples will take more risk in their investment. And in the sense that risk can yield higher returns in the long term, that's what two people does, where one person, where you're solely responsible for yourself so that if things go wrong, those people take less risk. And we can see this in the evidence.
Taking less risk, taking more risk. How do people need help with this conversation?
Well, I think they need to become financially literate, first of all, and that's an important part of it. So somebody like you can be really helpful, and someone who can help people have those conversations if they're not able to have them on their own.
Some incredible insights there. We'll be right back.
Secrets don't work. Financial secrets don't work. Second credit cards, second bank accounts, hiding the financial statements or the credit card statements just doesn't work.
It's now time to get our panel's final thoughts on financial infidelity and talking to your spouse about money. Marina, what are your thoughts?
I mean, my thoughts on this are, like over the lifetime, when people are earlier in their relationships, they really need to not just have the conversations, but actively try to match with somebody who shares their values, but actually also just reevaluating what your goals are.
Now, you talked about couples, making decisions and deciding how they make those decisions. Do you want to offer some final tips on that?
Yeah, so bargaining power is how people divide up decision making in the relationships, and you can't win all arguments in the relationship, right? That you have to win some, you have to win others. But I think that there's actually something to that, recognizing that you can't win all the battles, right?
So what I'm hearing is know which battles to win. Let's go to Claire for her final thoughts. So Claire, we've got a very heady subject today. What are your final thoughts?
Secrets don't work. Financial secrets don't work. Second credit cards, second bank accounts, hiding the financial statements or the credit card statements just doesn't work. Couples need to be open and clear in their communication with each other around finances.
So how do relationships get to that point?
Well, in my practice, I often see couples that come in, and the key issue is a problem with the finances. There have been secrets, there have been different ways of managing money to the point where it's gotten to be a problem.
Now, how does that present itself?
It presents itself with stress, with betrayal, with feeling overwhelmed, a lot of tension. And what we look for is, one person wants to change the other. That never is a good thing. People can't change their partners. What they have to do is come together and look at finances as a couple's issue and look at how they're going to do it differently.
So Darren, would you share your final thoughts with us as well?
Yeah, Jim, I'd encourage people to really gather up the courage to have the courageous conversation about finances. I mean, being able to find out if you're with somebody that has the values that are close enough to yours to have a life together that's going to make sense. Decide to be brave enough to talk to your significant other and say, we've never talked about money in the past that much. I'd like to, because I think I have a lot to learn about what you think about money, and I want to know more about what your goals are and where you want to go with this.
So quickly, Darren, share the power of a shared vision.
Without a shared vision, where are you going? Where's the roadmap? Where are you heading? If you don't have a shared vision, how do you know where if you're going in the same direction at all?
Today's show shines a light on money secrets between partners and the importance of engaged conversation. My final thoughts: our actions as much as our habits determine our financial outcomes. Start those conversations today. For more ideas, follow me on Twitter at @JDoyleVancouver. Now, I want to thank Marina, Claire, and Darren for sharing their thoughts on money matters. Because financial aspects touch so many elements of our lives, it pays to get great advice. Plan more and worry less.